Hi guys and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got the tank review for the brand new American Tier 8 Premium Medium Tank, the AMBT. Now this is an auto-reloading American medium tank. So what is an auto-reloader before we get into it? Well, it's one that basically can either fire a single shot or it can dump a clip. But it tends to not have as good a reload as everything else for that reason. But unfortunately, Wargaming, when they bring them over to console, tend to absolutely wreck their DPM, and it's something that they've done to this poor old AMBT. So my initial impression of this tank, before we get into any of the stats, is this tank is very slow. It's got troll armor that can be okay, but it's got tragic gun handling, and to add to that tragic gun handling, it's got absolutely tragic DPM as well, which is really sad, and it just makes this cool-looking tank really poor in my opinion, and I really don't think it's worth the gold at all. I don't think it's worth your hard-earned cash whatsoever, because if you want to make silver, obviously you can go get Cold War premiums, or you can wait for the Crimson Steel tanks and get like a Ragnarok, which does what this tank does but far better, or you can get any number of other premiums that will do what this tank does but better, and it's just not very good. So, without further ado, let's get into the statistics of the tank. Well, so, we'll start off with the engine and the mobility of the tank. The mobility of the tank, it's got 40 km/h top speed with 650 horsepower, which gives it 18 horsepower per ton. Now, it does get up to this 40 km/h top speed, although it does feel a little bit sluggish. And the fact that it's 14 kilometers an hour is absolutely tragic. This 40 kilometers an hour is just so bad. It makes this tank so slow. And having no mobility, you might think you've got good handling or good DPM. No, you don't even have that. There's no reason this tank should have such terrible mobility. It's just not mobile at all, and it's not really got the armor to load up for it either, which, yeah, it's not great. 14 kilometers an hour top reverse speed is okay. It does feel a little bit slow. Could be worse, could be better. 10% fire chance is extremely low though, so you're not going to get set on fire all that much, to be perfectly honest. You've got a 1300 horsepower per ton. Horsepower per ton? Did I say that? HP. It's because it says HP. 1300 hit points, which is around about normal for a tier 8 medium tank. A lot of them have that 13 to 15 to 16, depending on how much they've got armor-wise. And this has 1300 hit points. It's got 32 degrees a second hull rotation speed, which feels really slow with this tank. It feels very slow. It feels like you turn in a boat, you know? It's that kind of speed. Even that 32 degrees a second sounds like it's quite quick. It doesn't feel it. And having a traction system is probably going to benefit this a lot, as well as that top speed. Its soft stats aren't that great either. 2.1, 1.3 and 1.1 is not great, and that also hampers the tank a little bit, which means you're probably going to have to take off-road driving. Detectability, 335 meters of steel concealment. That's okay, and if you were to fit something like a camo net or put camo skill on, you're probably going to get down to like, what, below 300, which is fine. But the thing is, you're never going to be able to utilize this camo because you have to try and make everything else about this tank better. Unfortunately, this tank has so many bad strengths that you have to try and capitalize on making something better, and everything else that would make the tank more bearable just sits at its detriment, essentially. It's got 380 meters view range, which is okay. You have to run optics to be able to get above the 445 meters view range, which is a sad thing really for it, because it would be nice, or vents even, because it would be nice to get above that really without that, but unfortunately it is what it is. So we go down to the turret rotation speed, which is 28 degrees a second. It's so slow, which is another thing. You might be like, oh, I want to take rapid aim instead, but you might need to take the turret the off-road driving to make the mobility a little bit better. It's just not a friendly tank, this. It's not for the faint-hearted, that's for sure. If you're patient enough, you could probably make the most of it, but it's so boring to play. And to add to that, it's also very bad if you take it in a lot of situations. It's really just really a chore to play. It's got 10 degrees of elevation, which isn't the best, but it's elevation. Max 9 degrees of gun depression is pretty good. That's sound. You're going to be able to use that on a ridgeline fine. Yeah, it can go all the way around. Here we go. 16 on its best reload for 360 alpha. 19 on its second best. And 21 if you dump the clip. It's awful. My God, is it so slow for 360 alpha to fire this gun. Every other tank really does it better. It really does. And that is so slow. They've really hurt this tank. If they brought it in with the reloads that it had on PC, which is a lot faster than this, I say a lot faster, it's more like, I think it's 11 or 12 seconds on the best reload, and you can get that down, means you could try and make the other things that are bad about the tank better, which is how it is on PC. Because this tank does have terrible gun handling, and on PC you can try and make the mobility slightly better with a turbo, and then run everything else to make this reload better. But we can't. We have to make the reload as good as possible, and that means that the gun handling will suffer and the mobility will suffer, or, yeah, just generally things will suffer. It's suffering. That's how I'm going to relate to this tank. It's just suffering. It's got 0.38 accuracy, which is not that good, which means you're going to have to run vert stabs, but you can't, because you're going to have to run other pieces of equipment too. And it's got 2.7 second aim time, which is really bad for a 105. And is really painful a lot, especially with the clip. You got a 3 second intra-clip reload, which is also fairly slow. And it just doesn't make this tank fun to play whatsoever. It's just not that nice, really. You got 36 ammo capacity, 2 shells of APCR and HE. So you've got 1900 damage per minute, which is a lie, because auto reloaders are calculated different to most other tanks. Auto reloaders on the damage per minute in game are calculated as if you fire a single shot until you get to the last, for this tank will be the last 6 seconds, and you fire the final 2 shots in your clip. So that's the best DPM you can get in a minute, but then for the following minute it's going to be horrific, because you're going to be stuck with having to wait for this reload to get all the shells in, and that basically means you're going to spend, you know, like nearly a whole minute just reloading the clip in. It's got 215 APCR standard pen and 270 APCR premium pen. Now, the 215 is going to be okay-ish for most tier 8s. There's still going to be some tier 8s you are going to struggle with, and you're going to need the premium. And the premium is definitely going to be needed against tier 9s and 10s. You're going to see a lot of these things, if people buy them, that are going to be spanking full gold, because they're just going to really struggle with bad accuracy and bad DPM with 215 pen. So most are just going to load 278 to compensate for that. And I'd fully recommend it. As soon as I've seen tier 10 games, after the first couple of games where I was getting smacked by them and I struggled with 215, as soon as I saw it was tier 10, I just load 278 pen, because there's a lot of times where I get into games with the 215, I'd sit there, fire one, bounce, wait for the reload, and then just thinking, I just need premium. You hit the reload button, you've got to wait, you're out of the game for a whole minute waiting for the clip to come back in. Well, nearly a whole minute anyway. And it's just pain. It's just pain. So it's got 360 alpha, like I say, which is, you know, pretty decent. You hit pretty hard. You've got 1278 shell velocity on the standard APCR, which is fairly solid, and nearly 1500 meters a second on the APCR that's premium, which is fantastic. The shell velocity on this tank is incredible. It's one of the best things about the tank, sadly, and it means you're never going to suffer, realistically, for the shell velocity and having to lead them that much. And it's definitely a nice thing about the tank. Its silver bonus is also 150, which means it makes okay credits, but not the best. And yeah, I don't know, these stats, I could not recommend this tank for you guys. It's just not that good. It's an absolute struggle to play, and everything combined for it just makes it a right chore, because it's slow and sluggish, its accuracy is poor, and its reload is just terrible, generally. And its turret traverse isn't good either. So let's get into the equipment setup I run on the tank. Well, I run, for this tank, if we put on the standard of medkit, repair kit, and food, because you're going to want food to make everything as good as possible. On equipment, you're going to want to run rammer, because the reload is awful. You need a rammer. Now, this is your choice. You can run vents, or you can run optics. because you're going to want vents or optics. Vents will help your view range a little bit, but it will also help your gun handling and your DPM. So vents is probably what I'd go for. For me personally, I went for optics because I wanted optics to help me with the view range so that I could at least spot and get some assistance out of a game if I needed to on something like proc or melee or something like that, because getting out spotted in this tank is also pretty horrendous because you can't get out of anywhere very quickly, and it's nicer to be able to spot because that way, you know, you're actually gaining assistance rather than just being stuck with a terrible reload. And in terms of the third piece of equipment, traction system, you definitely need the extra speed because you can get up to 44 kilometers an hour, which is still horrendously slow, still terrible. I mean, if you wanted to, you could just accept your slow, go with 40 kilometers an hour and put vert stabs on, because if you're not going to run any of these pieces of equipment, which you're always going to run rammer, say if you were to not run vents or optics or the traction system, you're going to run vert stabs every single time to help that gun handling because it's atrocious. But that's the equipment I run because that's the way I want the tank to feel a little bit nicer. So I have, you know, good view range. I mean, with optics, I've got it to 435. So if I put a crew in, and we'll see. So the crew that I actually run is in... Right, that's pretty much the crew, so I'll take it. That was the crew I pretty much took. So... yeah, you could run camo, but I actually run Born Leader, Rapid Reload, Sixth Sense, Situational Awareness, Track Mechanic, Off-Road Driving, and all the gun perks. Run and Gun, Snapshot, Steady Aim. You want these gun perks because this gun is atrocious, so you need to make it as good as possible, especially since you're not going to be running vert stabs. You use these equipment as much as possible. Use these skills to help the gun as much as possible, and that, yeah, you're going to want it. You're going to want Born Leader because you want to make everything about the tank 10% better. You want Rapid Reload because you need to make that DPM as good as possible. You want to know when you're spotted with Sixth Sense. You want to make that view range better, definitely, because it's, you know, it's not the best it can be, so you want it to be good. Track Mechanic, the one thing I've noticed is if this thing gets shot in the side, it tends to get penned, number one, but number two, it tends to get its tracks blown off. So you want Track Mechanic to be able to get up and running again, so you can get between spots. And the fact is, because you're so slow, if you're moving between two positions, the likelihood is you're probably going to get shot as soon as you get spotted, and you might get tracked, so you want to run it. So off-road driving is the one that you might not take. So you might take off-road... I take off-road driving to help the ground resistances, because it's not the best. But you might not take that. You might want to take the rapid aim because the turret traverse is too slow. So you do that to make the turret traverse better, or you might find that the tracks are too slow at turning, so you take clutch braking instead. Or you might just want to make the camo slightly better and try and make that better and take camouflage expertise. It's up to you. It's how you want to run the tank personally. Or you could run Iron Mace just to make sure that the shell drop-off over range isn't that bad for both rounds of APCR. But yeah, there's too many things that this tank needs, and you can't sacrifice everything, unfortunately. So let's have a quick look at the stats while we've got this, all the equipment and the crew set up. So it's got 486 meters vision range with the crew and the optics and that, which is really solid. You're going to be able to spot everything you can with that, which is fine. You got 44 kilometers an hour at top speed instead, which is fine. Well, it's not fine. That's still exceptionally slow. So that's the best you can get it, unless you were to sacrifice more for the mobility, which you don't want to do, because you need to make everything else better. It's a 30 degrees a second turret rotation speed, which is slightly better with all the skills and stuff. The rotation speed of the hull, is now 35.2, which is decent. And the reload is 11.93 at best, 14.17 in the middle, and 15.16 at worst, which is still absolutely horrific. That is just not good. The reload's not very good on this tank at all. You've got a 0.31 accuracy again, which is, again, not too bad, but everything else is going to be below 0.3, especially if they're running vert stabs, which you've not been able to because you're making the mobility better. And you've got 2.5 second aim time, which is still exceptionally slow. So, yeah, on the whole, this tank is not great, and I would probably fully not recommend it. That's my opinion on this review. But as always, everybody, I'm going to Oh, well, actually, that's a good point before we go over this. I've just thought about this before we go over to the replays. The armor profile of this tank. That's the troll. That's one of the other decent features of the tank. It's got a troll armor feature. And that is that this upper plate is actually quite troll in it. If you're on a ridge line, or even out in the open, you can auto ricochet angle shots off this upper plate quite a lot. It tends to just bounce shots that you think, no, I'm gonna get penned here, and then this 70mm upper plate just bounces it. Same as off the sides of the turrets, off the turret cheeks here, and off the top of this turret here. They tend to ricochet shots, which is pretty decent when you're on a ridge line. If you're out in the open, though, this lower plate is big and fat and easy to hit. It's also quite easy to track and pen this tank, even from like an angle like that. And also, there is a shot trap on the turret, and I've actually played the newly buffed T62A, which is incredible, by the way. And I faced one of these, and this shot trap underneath the turret right here, if you're to see one of these things aiming at you, if you can shoot underneath the turret here, it's dead easy to pen. Very, very easy to pen on this tank. And you can see it here, look, it's that little lip. That little lip here. If you shoot under that, you will pen this tank very easily on the turret, and it just negates all of its sort of trollish armor. It's not brilliant armor, but it's troll, so you can ricochet the odd shot. So as always, everybody, I'm going to send you over to the replays, where you can watch the tank in action, see what it's like, make your own mind up on it as you watch it, see if it's too painful for you or if it actually looks pretty good for you. You make your own mind up. So as always, everybody, I will see you in the replays. So here we are in the replays with the AMBT, which I actually don't know what AMBT is. I assume it's just American MBT, you know, because it's American and it's an MBT project. But I was really looking forward to this tank coming over, because I have it on PC. I played it a fair bit on PC. It's a fairly average tank. It's not the best on there, because the reload on there isn't that good even, and the gun handling on it's pretty shocking, as well as the mobility being fairly mediocre. But the troll armor is, you know, alright. If this tank had better reload, it could be nicer, but unfortunately they just trashed it when it came over. And as you can see, we're going at 42, 43 with the traction system on. We're kind of just struggling along at 43 to 44. It's not... The mobility on this tank is not good. And these next two replays are sort of the more average-ish games that I had in the tank, or the sort of semi-best I could pull off with what we had. Now, we're on the first replay, and the first replay is on a highway. So I've come to this ridgeline here, where I normally come to, and unfortunately, I made a mistake at the start. And that is I fired one, penned the light tank, and tried to take a cheeky second shot. That was a mistake, because now I'm just sort of stuck reloading for a bit. And if I hadn't taken that cheeky second shot, I could have got a shot here quite easily. Now I'm waiting for the reload, and unfortunately we just misfired there. It was a poor shot, really. Should have let it a little bit more. But if I hadn't fired that second shot, I wouldn't have been stuck in that dilemma of I need to wait for the shell to go back in. I would have been reloaded. I could have fired at that guy. The reload, once you fired the first shell, is just so painful. And you really do have to make situations, and you really stuck with a dilemma every single game of once you fired the first shot, do I want to fire the next one? Because, yeah, once you've fired two, once you fired all three, the game can pass you by so quickly. And it's like, it literally, in the blink of an eye, it's gone. And you can't do anything. I've had a lot of 3.5, 4.5 minute games where I've managed to do 2k damage, less than that, and that was fighting every tooth and nail, right? Fighting as hard as I can to even just get 2k damage. And if I was in any other tank, even many other autoloaders, I probably would have had more damage, because I would have had more opportunities to fire, and I would have been loaded more often to fire the gun. Whereas it doesn't quite happen as much with this tank, unfortunately. And right now, we're looking at a VKB. Now, if I was in any other tank, I would have switched automatically to premium, and then possibly been able to go through his lower plate. Because even at his lower plate with the premium round, I might still struggle. But I can't. I just cannot. Same as this Jagdtiger. I would have switched to premium, and I would have been able to shoot down on his upper plate and gone through it, probably. But I can't. Because if I now switch to my premium round, I have to spend about 10 years reloading to get it back in. And it's just not fun, because By the time you spent the probably what we're looking at 45 seconds, 46 seconds with it fully pimped out to get the full clip back in. Like I say, with the games that average in 4.5 to 5 minutes, you've wasted a lot of game time already just trying to get the right round in to shoot someone. And by the time you've got the full clip in, that tank that you might have been firing at for those shells is already gone. Which is why I say, you know, fire as soon as I see tier 10, and there's quite a few tanks that are heavily armoured, I'll just automatically switch to firing premium because I don't want to be stuck with that dilemma. And it's just... with the 215 pen and the poor accuracy, it's pretty frustrating to be then bouncing shots and then having to wait forever to fire. Doesn't mean that the gun can't hit shots, because it does like to hit funky little shots like that on the move at that AMX M445. It can hit shots. I mean, 0.31 accuracy isn't that bad by any means. It's just everything else is going to have just as good, if not better. And that's what you got to think about. You might be thinking it's not that bad for this tank, but considering everything else it's going to be facing, say like the Patriot, it's just going to be way better than you. And that's a sad fact. So we managed to get 2 into the Super Hellcat there. I decided, because the Super Hellcat was the last one in the town, and I could hide behind this building to reload if I wanted to, I decided, you know what, I'm going to try and pad some damage. I've done absolutely nothing so far, and the game is almost over, look. And I was like, okay, you know what, I'm just going to dump the clip into this Super Hellcat, try and get the kill. But unfortunately, couldn't even kill it because the Patriot drove in the way and managed to get it himself, which, yeah, fair enough. But because the intro clip was 3 seconds, it was just that little bit too long. I don't know, there's just... It's one of those things, if you could try and maximise one strength of the tank, that would be great. But the thing is, once you've maximised the DPM, it's still not even that good. And then you've still got tragic gun handling, and you can't really make the best of the gun handling because you want to try and make the best of the DPM and the view range and the mobility, for example, put the traction system on. Now, right here, we managed to catch that Yag Tiger out, but I'm like, I wish I had premium in because I can only pen that one shot into his side. From this angle, no chance of penning the lower plate or the upper plate of the Yag Tiger, sorry. We still go for it anyway. 215, even shooting down is not going through that guy's upper plate. And I just decided, you know what, I'm not penning that. I'm just ignoring it. There's no point. We can see something shooting from the left-hand side. And it's like, okay. There's something shooting from the left-hand side. It's a medium tank. I've already looked a bit earlier. It was an Object 416. And it's like, okay, well, this guy I can pen. Oh, there's an artillery as well. I can pen that. There, we managed to bounce, or, well, auto-ricochet a shot off of our upper plate from the 416, which is nice. Say the armor on this tank can be good. We make sure the shell's as aimed in as possible. We get a shot into the upper plate of the 416. And we're just going to try and wait for the shell to go back in. But if he gives us another chance to shoot, we're doing it. Because our team is closing in. And the likelihood of us getting the chance to get that shell in to be able to clip him out and then get the full damage was very unlikely. So it was just decided, I just decided, you know what, I'm padding the damage, getting the full clip in. And we managed to finish the game with 2.5k damage with 68 assistance. That game ended pretty damn quickly. And so getting 2.5k assistance wasn't too bad for this tank. I mean, it's 6 minutes and 18 seconds. The game just got away from us that little bit too quickly. I don't know. It just... We were just too slow to get to the forefront at the start. The reload and the accuracy isn't good enough, really, to be able to maximise what that town fight was, in which it was just pure destruction very, very quickly. By the time that was over, we managed to get as much as we could possibly, because we were the ones that actually pushed forward aggressively before our team got there to be able to drop our clip in to get that 2.5k assistance damage. So we're on the second replay, and we're on Proc. Now, Proc is going to be a good map for the AMBT. Apart from the fact that tanks are going to pop in and out of cover and stuff like that, this tank's pretty decent hull down, like I say, because if you, as I showed you with the turret, the top of the turret is an auto ricochet angle. Again, when you're hull down, same as the upper plate is even more so, and the cheeks can bounce quite a few shots. Like I say, the only problem for this tank's turret is that the underside of the turret is a shot catch, and that can be a problem. But for the most part, when you hull down with this tank, you're going to have a pretty good time. Now, unfortunately, we end up getting shot by something that is still unspotted at G1. And that was kind of annoying because it's like, I can't see that even when it fires, right? That means that position I'm in is a bit useless. We managed to get lucky with a shot to go into the Aguila there. That was very fortunate that it hit. And then we managed to finish him off with the second shot. I just decided, you know what, I want the kill on that Aguila. We're getting rid of it. And I'm not trusting everyone else to do it. So we'll pop 2 shots in, sit with the bad reload, and do it. I ping where the thing that shot me was to the light tank because, well, I just helped him out. I'm hoping he'll go help us out and spot the one line. And thankfully, he actually said affirmative and went for it. So now we're waiting for that final shell to go in the clip. And we managed to shoot the eggplant that he's spotted up, which is great. And it's always nice when you've got a light tank that knows what he's, or seems to know what he's doing on Prokhorovka, because that can be the winning difference. Now that Super Hellcat gets spotted up, and I decided to fire the second shell at it because it was like, well, you know what, he's going to get away before I get another chance to shoot at it. I want some damage on him. So we get the shot into him, and therefore we're helping the light tank out get his assistance as well, you know, get his good stuff for spotting for us, which is great. I'm really happy with what this guy's doing because he is actually like doing what we need him to do and what the team needs him to do, and that is go spot and light the targets up. So we pop over, we see the T-150, we're just waiting for the gun to be aimed in as much as possible. You just saw how slow the aim time is. But we did manage to get the shot into him. And now we loaded again, we're just waiting for more to get spotted. There's a TD that's YOLOing in. It's like, right, okay, just aim, aim, aim. We're going to take the shot because he's going to back off too quickly, but it does manage to go in. And now I decide, you know what, the team's closing in. That Trinity's got up above the ridgeline and tracked. I'm just going to dump the clip in and get as much damage off as I can on those guys. Because I think, you know what, there's possibly the chance that I might be able to get a full, or at least 2 shots in before my team get into that corner. But, like, the Patriot YOLO's over. The SE-130 PM is sat back there. I decide, you know what, my team is just absolutely destroying them. I'm going to fire the worst DPM I can into the SE-130 PM to get a shot in. And just like that, with the snap of her fingers, the enemy team is dead. At one stage I thought, oh, the team's closing a little bit slowly. I might be able to get 1 or 2 shells in, but no, it just didn't happen. We finished with the victory. Light tank on top, which is good for him. We come second with the 3.1 sniper, the high caliber. 1200 base XP with, yeah, 3.1k damage and 703 assistance. Decent game for how quick that one was over on proc. Like I say, you have to have a lot of patience and a lot of determination to make the most out of the reload. And like I say, the frustration is the moment you fire the second shell and you realise it's a mistake, or you miss or bounce that second shell, it's absolute pain. And you have to wait for a very, very long time. So we're on to the third game, and this is the best game of the 3. This is showing what it can kind of do against tier 10s, but at its best, really. This is probably the best game I've had in it in the 15 to 20 games I've played in it. And we're on Thiepval Ridge, and we're against tier 10s. And as I said, against tier 10s, I just immediately pressed A when I saw quite a lot of heavily armoured tanks like E4s and things like that. And then 48 patterns, which we're not going to pen at distance frontal or anything like that with the standard rounds. So I just decided, you know what, premium from the start, I want to try and make the most of this game. So this 13105 is making a strong YOLO play, which is trying to spot our guys, which he has, and he's got away with it. Unfortunately, we're not quite going to get a shot at him. So we're just going to duck in so that I don't hopefully get shot by anything on the hill at E7 and get up to this ridge line as close as possible. There's a Grilla spotted back there. It's like, hello, Mr. Grilla. Try and pop a shot at him, but unfortunately the shot misses. It wasn't aimed. It was just after we'd stopped moving. Or just after we were moving, really. So, yeah, unfortunately that one missed. Is what it is. Wasn't very well aimed. Now there's the M48 pattern. We auto-aim. Pop the shot in a little bit more aimed. But we didn't stick around on that ridgeline. Again, the trick is never to stick around on a ridgeline like that. If you know there's a lot of shooters near the back, and you stick around on the ridgeline and get shot, well, yeah, you knew what was going to happen, unfortunately. Knowing that they still have quite a few tanks back there, I didn't want to do it. So now we pop over this ridgeline, get a nice shot into the T-44. I was thinking about finishing him off, but then I didn't really want to go into a bad reload right now. And more than that, I thought, because I was detected the immediately as soon as I went over, I thought something's looking at me. I don't want to try and finish off this T-44 for 100 and something and then get tagged myself. So unfortunately we missed the shot on the Tusk there because we're not aiming, which means most of the time this tank is going to miss these shells. But it is what it is. Just waiting for the reload to come in, and then we put around the corner. We're trying to just spot what is up on that hill because there is something up there, and we are getting detected by the Tusk, but we've seen shots, and there we go. There's a stone cold. We're waiting for the shell to get loaded, and we actually hit him there, which is really fortunate. But we ricochet off his turret front, and yeah, I could have tried to wait to get a second shot in, but again, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to wait for the reload. We make sure the shot's as well aimed as we can make it before we get the shot into him, which we do, and pen him. We're up to 1127 damage. I'm just watching what's happening with the light tank over there. Just watching what's happening on the hill. This M48 pattern spotted out in the open. He's right in front of us, so we get one in to pen him, and the second one mostly aimed on him to finish him off. It's one of those things, like, because this gun is horrendously inaccurate, but because the aim time's so long, and you're watching your reload dip down, and you're wasting DPM by waiting for the aim time as well, by the way. That's just the way it feels. You sometimes feel like you have to fire not fully aimed so that you can get the shot in, you know, and get the damage. So right here, I could have shot that Dragon a minute ago, but I wanted to wait for the full clip to get in. So now he's on the move out. We actually fully loaded, which is good. We get a shot into him. That's where the patience came in. You do have to be very patient with this tank. It's the same as every other auto reloader in that way, really. You've got to be patient. You've got to be assessing the moment you're going to take the shot. So in that moment there, I decided that firing that second shell and waiting again was not worth it. I may as well wait to get the full clip in, and then wait for him to give us another shot. Therefore, we'll be all right to, you know, DPM-wise, and be able to keep firing. So we get another shot into the Dragon. Really, like, we're getting some very lucky snapshots here. We managed to get that into his underside when he was going down, which, like I say, is quite unfortunate. But that's where the gun derps, right there, against that griller. That we weren't fully aimed, and the shot went to the far side. And yeah, it was to be expected. But it's really annoying, right? Because there's some shots that we've been hitting in this game which haven't been the most well aimed. And then there's going to be shots which are pretty decently aimed or pretty close in that we probably should hit and pen, but we just don't. Because reasons. As we're going to see here, we're coming against this T-54. Unfortunately, we only track him because it's just misaimed. Now he's repaired. And instead of going into his side, the shot ends up going to the far right of his upper plate, which is the most well-angled bit of his upper plate. And it ended up just ricocheting. And it's like, oh, come on, gun. You could have just let me kill that guy. Oh, well. We're now deep in the clip because that's the frustration, is I went deep in the clip to finish that guy off. And unfortunately, we didn't finish him off. We spot the 50 TP prototype in the open. I was contemplating shooting him, but I couldn't. But then the Trinity is spotted, and he's being closed in on by our team. So I decided, you know what? He's mine. I'm just going to blow the shot to kill him. And it's what we do. The Stone Cold manages to get a shot into us because I'm a bit preoccupied or a bit worried about the Gorilla 15 that is on the hill at J9. Because if he was to pop up, he could probably shoot us in the backside and finish us off, which is not what we want. That's not going to be fun. Now we've got one shell in. I'm just going to wait for that second shell and see if I can get a shot at this Tusk. We know where they are. The artillery is probably where artillery normally spawns on these spawns, which is like, you know, B0, A0, somewhere like that. The other two, Tusk is spotted in front of us, and the Gorilla was on this hill behind us. So it's like, okay, you know what? I'm going to go up and try and find this Gorilla and Tusk. Now, we end up getting lit up, and it's like, that's definitely the Gorilla. It couldn't have been the Tusk there. There we go. He's just got his turret poked above. We light him up. We have got a heavy tank friend at J6. We've also got artillery. Artillery lands a big shell, gives us a bit of assistance. Now, this guy pulls back a little bit, and the way he does it, and then he starts pulling forward, it's like, this guy's coming for me. Okay, I'm going to slow down a little bit to make sure the gun's not that inaccurate when we have to fire. Here he comes over, aim for the drive wheel, track him in place, and set him on fire, and someone else gets the shot into, well, the big shot into him there. And we end up shutting him down, and we finish the game with 3.5k damage, the victory, 1796 base XP, 3 kills, 2.5k assistance, the leather Schleilos for killing 2 tanks 2 tiers higher, first class, yeah, nearly 1800 base XP. A nice game for the AMBT, the best I've had so far in it. And yeah, this tank, it's not the best, honestly. So now, I'm going to go throw myself into a big fat ice bath because I can't wait for that because it's so hot. It's the hottest day of the year in the UK at the minute. I can't fully recommend this AMBT to any of you with any good conscience. It's not that good of a tank, honestly. So as always, everybody, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.
A great success!